graph the function, and this time we have a cosine. So remember, a cosine function is a shifted graph. We want that top bump to go through 1, and you move that over to pi halves. So immediately when you read the question, know that if you start at the beginning, reset, it's going to give you a sine function. You have to first move it to cosine. Cosine is just a shifted graph of sine. Okay, so now it's cosine. Now let's get started. So y equals, I'm just going to write the general form of cosine. And I didn't leave enough room, so we're going to rewrite this and identify our a, b, and c. But now they're all lined up. So a is 4, b is the number by x, which is just 1. C is the number after the minus sign, so pi 6. Remember, it's the opposite sign of in the parentheses. And d is -3. So when you go through these, I want you to start with the amplitude. It is the yellow triangle, and we're going to move it to the amplitude number. So the amplitude is the absolute value of a. Absolute value of that is just 4. So notice that we're down right here. We want to take that down to 4. So don't cross and go up. Just because it's +4 doesn't mean you do that. You just reflected the graph. We don't want to reflect the graph. We just want to move it. So we're going to move down to 4. Well, -4. But see, it's also up a +4. It's the distance from the midline to the top, midline to the bottom. Okay, now we're going to do the period. That is the red dot. And we find the period by taking 2 pi over the absolute value of b. But in this case, b is just 1, which means the period doesn't move. The standard period is 2 pi. So we actually don't have to move the red dot. If you look, it's not at 2 pi, but we're looking at the distance before the graph repeats its cycle. So on cosine, I like to look at the top. That top hump is at 0, and this top is at 2 pi. So the distance between the cycle is actually 2 pi. If you subtract those points, 5 pi halves minus pi halves, you will get 2 pi. Just know if b is 1, you don't have to move anything. We like that. Okay, next we're going to do the midline. And our midline is y equals d. So here y equals -3. So we're going to move the blue diamond to -3. So we're going to move it down. And remember, it's a y value, right? So we're going to y -3. So now the middle of the graph, that horizontal line, is at -3. And then one more thing is the phase shift. That equals c over b. And the phase shift is our right or left shift. Are we going right or left? And then we use the blue diamond to move that one. Okay, so let's plug in our values. C is pi 6th, and b is 1. Pi 6 over 1 is just pi 6. It's a positive number, so that means we're going to move right pi 6. Okay, so right now we're at pi halves, and we want to move pi 6. So if I'm at pi halves, and I want to go right pi 6, I'm going to add that value to pi halves. So I'm actually taking pi halves plus pi 6. The problem is, if you put that in a calculator, it's going to give you a decimal. Boo. You have to take out the pi's. 1/2 plus 1/6 is 2/3, and then you put the pi back into your answer. So it's actually 2 pi thirds is where we want to move our graph to. And it's right there. Okay, so we moved it over pi/6. And if you want to go to Desmos and check your answer, you can by hovering on these points and making sure those are in your graph.